Good evening. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole Finance meeting for Wadsworth City Council on Wednesday, May 7th, 2025 at 5:45. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Copley.
Here.
Hanlon.
Here.
Hines. Here. Parrish.
Here.
Rosbert.
Here.
Stugmeyer.
Here.
Yurcheck.
Here.
And Williams.
Here. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the Committee of the Whole Finance of April 15th, 2025. May I have a motion?
I'll make that motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes of the Committee of the Whole Finance from April 15th, 2025 has been adopted. The next item, we have a presentation from Addison Properties on a TIF. Who would like to speak on that?
I'll speak on that. They wanted me to talk, given what happened yesterday, bring council up to speed as to what we are, what would happen, where we are and where we're going. Where did we start? Started with the Vance property. The Vances wanted to sell the family farm, so they came to the city, which will allow them to develop it. They wanted to annex into the city to be part of the city of Wadsworth from the township. They filed the annexation to get the water to be able to build at a higher density than the township would allow. We said, as part of our annexation policy, we want to see the concept plan to see if this is something that we can provide services for. We showed that to the council's satisfaction. Council authorized the service director to enter into a contract or to enter into a pre-annexation agreement. What's the pre-annexation agreement say? It says that the city is willing to annex the property, and you got to do it within 120 days when it's laid before council. City is willing to assign the zoning which was suggested, and that's what we agreed to. The developer agrees that the plan that you've seen is generally what it's going to be developed for. There's not going to be a bait and switch. So that was what the pre-annexation part of this process occurred. There are certain improvements that are for the city's benefit that we cannot typically compel a developer to do. Turn Smoke Rise into a collector street, a water loop across a highway, upsize a force main. These are things that typically are infrastructure that the city has to provide or the city has to do. And how are we going to pay for it? That is the question. This is beyond the scope of what the pre-annexation agreement is. The pre-annexation agreement says we're going to allow this property to come in and we're going to zone it accordingly. This is something different. How are we going to put in some major infrastructure that is needed that the city has an obligation to put forward on? One of the ways that we can do this is the way we were looking at initially is a TIF. That allows additional new money that a development would bring in from increased property values to use that for an infrastructure. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's try to put some numbers on it to see if we can make some sense out of it. We needed to know when we're presenting this TIF, why is the county involved? Because they get notice that was sent by the developer that we're looking at a TIF. And if it is over a 10-year TIF, if it is over a 75% TIF, and we'll talk about what that means, then they're going to have a right to object. So let's break down what a TIF is. Let's break down what the county did so that we know how to go forward. How does a TIF work? These are simplified numbers. Try to make the math work out. Currently, the land produces about $4,000 in property tax. That's how much they pay and put in the kitty. Who gets that money? The school does. Gets the lion's share. They get 3/4 of it. They get $3,000. The township gets $400. The county gets $500. Others get $100. City doesn't get anything. Why? It's not in the city. It's still in the township. So that is what is currently the property tax for that land. It's certainly underdeveloped. If the development goes in, that $4,000 in property tax income turns into $2 million after it's fully built out. So that means the school's going to look at $1.5 million that it receives out of that property tax. The city, now that it's part of the city, looks at $60,000. The county looks at $280,000. The township looks at $160,000, and others for $100,000. That is significantly more than what they would have if no development occurred. So can we tap that increase in value to put in necessary infrastructure is what a TIF does. It takes future new revenue no one would have without the development and essentially earmark that to pay for infrastructure improvements now. We did this for Wadsworth Crossings, most of you remember. That's what straightened Hartman out. That's what went towards the water tower construction. That was about 20 years ago. It was very successful. Some types of TIFs are non-objectionable. They can't go to the county can't object, the school cannot object to them. And those are 10 years and 75% exemption. What does that look? That means $2 million would be coming in, $1.5 million that goes to the school turns into $375,000 that they would make. $60,000, $15,000, $280,000 to $70,000, and so on. The 75% would go to infrastructure. And it's because a lot more money is going to be up front because the school gets the lion's share. That means it only needs to be for 10 years. That is the 10-year TIF. There's a problem with that when you do it with residential that maybe you don't have with commercial. When we have new residents coming in, that's an increased pressure on the school. So from a policy standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense to make the school take a haircut on how much they're going to get when new kids are going to be coming in. So what the trend has been is 30-year non-school TIFs. These are, one was done in Norton. They've been done regularly in the Columbus area. So what does that look like? There's $2 million. That's the new fee that's coming in, the new property tax fee. The $1.5 million, we're going to keep it to the school 100%. So they're not going to take any loss. The city, township, county, and others, all the non-protected levy proceeds are going to go towards paying the infrastructure. So there's protected levies, there's a big list of them, including EMS levies and those types. Those still get paid in full. But the other ones, that would go to protect, or go to pay for infrastructure that otherwise is not being produced. But everybody is getting exactly the same thing that they would have gotten if not for the development. These paltry numbers up here, they would still get that as if no development occurred because that's all they would get without the development. Why would the City of Wadsworth want this? It's a way to pay for infrastructure without issuing debt, without tapping a general fund. This is money we never would have gotten without a development. Property wasn't even in the City of Wadsworth. The development increases the value of the property, and we can leverage that into real infrastructure improvements right now. Some of those infrastructure improvements certainly have been on our books since our last comp plan. They've been talking about taking Smoke Rise through for an awful long time. Why would the county object to that? They want full value. They don't want to lose their proceeds or potential proceeds to the city for our infrastructure needs. And that's what they did. They objected. So where do we go from here? We still need to annex the property. The property, per our agreement, we entered the agreement already. Now that we're effectuating the agreement with our readings and with our passing of the legislation, we're on the second reading now. I would highly advise that we get that third reading. That's when we can vote on it and pass it. Otherwise, we would be in violation of that agreement that we've already entered into. We still need to set the zone per our agreement for the same reasons. Now we need to figure out how to pay for infrastructure now that we know the county's position, that they're not going to go with the premise that we wouldn't see that money anyway, so let's all funnel it into infrastructure. We got to figure out how we're going to pay for it. Are we going to modify what infrastructure needs to go in so that we can not need the TIF money to pay for it? Are we going to issue debt from ourselves so that we can put the street through? Are we going to use impact fees or other mechanisms that Mr. Davis has been working on to try to offset those costs? Assessments, are they going to be available? Is a TIF, whether it be a 10-year 75 or a modification of the 90-year or the TIF that currently we were looking at, are those going to be available and what are the ramifications of that? So my advice at this point is to not take up the TIF legislation at all until we figure out what route we're going to go given the nature of the county's reaction to what we did. We go through and go through ED&P, start talking about some of these options, and then when we figure out an option that ED&P is satisfied with, bring it back up to Committee of the Whole, go through those options so that we all understand those, and then go for a vote on that if and when we need it. I know available is somebody from Addison Property, Tommy Visconti, as well as an attorney that works on these all the time. If there's any questions specifically about the TIF, they're certainly available to answer those questions.
Would anybody like to speak on this?
Thanks, Tom. So yeah,
Name and address for the record, please.
Tommy Visconti, 2258 Delamere Drive, Cleveland Heights, Ohio. So this is about solving an issue that many cities across Ohio face. Rising construction costs and a limited public budget that make it nearly impossible for cities to expand their roads and their utilities on their own. TIF helps shift that burden to us. We're happy to take that on. We're happy to build smoke rise and extend those utilities. Pure public infrastructure improvements that have been a priority for the city for over a decade. And that cost increases our overall budget by nearly 35%. There's simply no economically feasible way that we can absorb that cost without a public finance tool like TIF. We're happy to take that burden on, happy to be a partner in it, and if anyone has any questions, happy to answer those.
Any questions? No? Okay. Anything further from administration? All right. Yesterday, myself...
We got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Mr. Morris, I'm a little confused about the money you talked about for the schools. You said it was $3,000 currently, and then it would go to $2 million. Is that approximately what you said? I mean, in that
Right now, the property in its current undeveloped
4,000
stage,
brings 3,000 to the schools?
4,000 of that 3,000 goes to the schools, is my
Yeah,
understanding.
3,000 goes.
Yeah.
Now, when you pass a bond levy, it's a fixed amount. For schools have bond levies, it's a fixed amount. So no matter what amount of money can come in, you cannot collect any more money for the schools. In fact, it has to be spread out and everybody else's taxes go down, property taxes go down. So I don't understand those numbers you gave.
Certainly, I'm not a school lawyer. Those issues are not something that I deal with. Mr. Markley does. Or if you certainly want to speak towards how the value is not static at that 3,000 and moved up to 20 million.
So you're correct with the bond levy, a voted bond levy, the amount would go down citywide, or district-wide. But future levies that the schools would levy would be able to benefit, and tax rates would go down, essentially, for people.
Does that include permanent levies?
Depends on the levy. It just
Okay,
depends on the
'cause
levy.
usually it's a
Each
set amount
levy
no matter what.
depends. It goes to replacement, renewal. I know they're trying to limit replacements, renewal, new money, emergency. School districts have a whole slate. I don't know Wadsworth schools, how they line up, right? So, but they are treated differently. And
So currently, until that levies are not renewed, but it's a new levy, the amount of monies would not change. So that, what we saw on that diagram is not necessarily true to what will happen in the near future, maybe next 10 years.
But it does benefit all residents of the
Yeah,
district
they'll all lower.
who will have lower taxes.
Lower taxes
Yes.
for everyone.
Yeah.
And how does this benefit the city other than, how further does this benefit the city? I mean, what is...
Talking about growth in general, or are you talking about the
Well,
infrastructure?
because we have very easily developed land. And large tracts are available. We have good services, and we have 2 interstates that are close by. That 3 interstates, if you include 77, maybe about 10 minutes north, south, east, west. Highly sought after, valuable land, and it's reasonably priced. So, how does this benefit us to have to pay for these things?
I would suggest to you that if there was utilities and there was reasonably priced, they would have already been bought.
Yep.
When I deal with these lands, these tracts that you're talking about, they all have infrastructure issues, whether they be for water, whether they be sanitary sewer, whether they be tap-in fees for those. There are no simple, easy lands to develop that I've seen. I'm certainly willing to
Well, it's not
look at any.
hilly and it's not mountainous, and it's reasonably flat, and there's very little water, rivers and so forth through there, and creeks. So that's why I'm saying it's a fairly desirable piece of property.
Everything happens for a reason, and the reason those haven't developed is because they have major infrastructure problems. Whether we haven't got the water out there, we haven't got the sewers out there, or we have other issues with wetlands, and certain portions of it have severe wetland issues that need to be fixed. The easy ones, except for that 80 acres in the middle of the city, the easy ones are gone, and these are all challenging ones. That's why you see the rise in PUDs, because we have major problems in the middle that we have turned into open space so that we can develop the ones out there. So I know Addison Property is looking for easy ones, and they haven't been able to find it. The ones I'm dealing with haven't been able to find those easy ones that you're talking about. So I would suggest that the infrastructure, the stuff under the ground, you're not seeing. I'm certainly happy to share those studies with you, any tract you want to look at. I can tell you the story of why it hasn't developed.
Okay, and lastly, the TIF. Where did this idea originate from? Was it the city, or was it the builder, or who proposed this?
Originally, when the discussions initially began, we started talking about how are we going to pay for the infrastructure, the arterial street of smoke rise, and the request by the developer was we could do that through a TIF. My concern was I can't do it through a school TIF because of the problem with the recreational or the residential area of it. So that's when they proposed the 30-year no school TIF.
And the extension of smoke rise, who does that benefit? I mean, other than access, is there other landowners in that area that will benefit from that extension?
That's been part of our comprehensive plan since at least 1991. I look back at them. That is property that links the north side and the east side of town. Critical for not only our firefighters that have mentioned that that's a route they would use, but also for traveling for the citizens going back and forth instead of having to go all the way up to Reimer and cut over. It also helps the development of the north end that we're talking about, some of that property on Laverne that we've struggled to secure people or commercial people to buy. They're looking for that access road for smoke rise.
Is there other landowners that benefit from smoke rise's extension?
Other
than Advanced Property?
Yeah, I think they do.
Okay,
So,
want-
I mean, let me
want to
cut
go-
you off right there. I'm sorry, Councilmember, but we're getting into something for committee and not this particular committee. So if you have questions, attend or, get direct answers from
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you afterwards too.
But we
or
need to
wherever you
move
want
on with these questions right now. May I have your name and address?
Yeah,
for the
Justin
record, please?
Justin Markey, 7340 La Costa Drive, Hudson, Ohio.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Any other questions from council? Yes, sir. Getting back to what I was going to say, yesterday, Councilmember Copley, Trustee Engler, and myself were at the commissioners' meeting when this was discussed. And since Trustee Engler's in the audience, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I would.
Come on up to the microphones, name and address for the record.
Robert Engler, address 263 Wall Road, Doylestown, Ohio, but Wadsworth Township. I am a Wadsworth Township trustee. I did attend the meeting yesterday, and there was a lot more questions came out of that meeting than answers. I met with the school superintendent and Doug Beeman last Friday morning to discuss their share of this tax incentive. I'm fine with that. The township's fine with that. They really need, and they do get the 70%. We checked my property on the county auditor. We checked Doug Beeman's property. The tax is right. It's about 70%. We're worried about the other 30%. I didn't bring in my proposal from the meeting yesterday, but when I read over those 30-some pages, I understood about 20% of it. The numbers you came up with are fine. I'm glad you said you don't know what's coming out of the county, because the feeling in that room was not for this TIF. I cannot speak for the commissioners, but I think it was not a good reception, gentlemen. The problem is the 30%. When I read through your proposal, I saw nowhere that 30% was going to go. We entered into an annexation. That's been 2 years now. I hear now you're in the second reading. I thought it was the third reading. But I'm not so sure I would even enter in that third reading until we find out some of these ideas on that annexation, because with this TIF, you're kind of cutting out a lot of people that were in that room yesterday from different organizations, that their tax money is going to be lost. We were concerned about, are we going to get our tax money at the township from the bare land? We understood, or I understood, that the developed land, we would be getting our share of the tax money on the developed land. That's a lot of money. So I'm just not so sure that the council should be ready to vote on this, either the annexation or the TIF. I'm glad to say that Mr. Morris said maybe wait on the TIF to get more details. I think there's more feedback that needs to come to the council. One of the objections I heard, if Mr. Williams will back me up, the county was concerned about how this TIF came in. I think the commissioners felt it should have come from city council rather than economic development. That's probably a legal thing, but they were concerned about the way this whole thing started. And I think they're going to address that. So there's so many questions to be answered before you move on. That's my opinion as a trustee and as a resident of the township. Any questions for me?
No, or you're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I was at that meeting also, and I would like to second what Bob has said, because it was very obvious the impact to the county was going to be very serious. So the social services and everything like that there, all that needs to be considered, because when those services are impacted, what's going to happen? They're going to put more levies on the ballot, and it's going to affect every city resident here. So we really need to take a strong, hard look at this.
Anybody else? Does anyone comment? We've been talking about TIF on this particular property for some time. Had minutes all the way back to August? You pulled all the minutes.
Last
Anytime
year.
TIF was mentioned in any of the committees, and there was no details. I didn't know about it until our county administrator sent this to me, and it's the TIF agreement. Had no idea what was in it, nor did anybody on council, from what I understand.
Nor did the township.
Or the township. Thankfully, I got this. I got a hold of our attorney, Mr. Proudfoot, and asked him for interpretation, and also our auditor, because it does affect the city, it does affect other things, and I had them to do some investigation. Ms. Fix, would you like to make any comments, or?
I mean, basically, like you, I was caught off guard. You sent it to me on Friday, and I've invested 2 solid days trying to interpret all of it, and came up with, spoke with our municipal advisor. Yeah, I think, I'm not sure why it proceeded the way it did, but I have a list of concerns and issues myself financially. And so I think, yes, we need time to absorb all that and address all the financial concerns as well as other concerns that council might have.
Could I add on
Yeah,
my
go ahead.
comment? When I went to the commissioners meeting yesterday and got a copy of that document, okay, that's actually the first time I had seen it. That document was drafted April 16th of this year. Why didn't council see that prior to that April 16th draft? Or at least have it discussed with council prior to that draft?
That would be transparency.
I mean, you have promised us transparency.
Absolutely. Is this a question for me? I'd love to respond,
I mean,
if it is.
I'm just asking the question. It was
Absolutely.
given to the commissioners, laid in front of them on the 16th of April.
When we start
It was
this,
never mentioned to council at all till I went up there yesterday. And that was embarrassing to hear the commissioners talk, like, well, why hasn't council did anything with this? Council didn't know about it.
We have to get
Go
over,
ahead.
we have to get over that threshold to see what the county commissioner is going to do. Are they going to say, hey, this is new money, so we're going to let that money go to infrastructure, or no? They said no. So now we are at stage one to try to figure out how to pay for that infrastructure. So why didn't the initial contract go? That is a contract that has been reviewed, got back before. There's been changes to it along the way to try to confirm what is within the scope of that TIF. What's going to be part of that reimbursed infrastructure that's going in? Believe me, I was not going to ask anybody to waive readings. This is a complex topic. If you all understand it 100%, I'd be shocked because of the nature of this complex topic. This is something that's going to be talked about in ED&P at least 2 more times. And the contracts, before anybody signs anything, is going to be flushed out to everyone's satisfaction. That contract's not going to be good because it's going to be different than what because there was a valid objection by the county. So now we start from the beginning again.
So there is going to be more transparency. I guess that's what I'm asking.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm not trying to hide
What did you
anything.
say?
There'd be more transparency.
Right, and there's lots of other alternatives, right?
There are other
Other than just a 30-year non-school TIF.
There isn't a 30-year non-school, correct?
That's what was
Yeah,
objected
it's
to.
30-year.
Oh, 30-year non-school, I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, that's what was objected to,
I
but there's
misunderstood.
plenty of other
Yeah.
alternatives.
There are other alternatives, and we're going to talk about that in ED&P. That's what my presentation is on there. We weren't ready for prime time in terms of giving you this is the contract I'm going to recommend you sign. We weren't there. I got to see what the county's going to do. So we tell the county, hey, we're looking at this. They say, no, we're not going to play with this situation. Now we're back to ground zero. Every contract I get, I will give to you, and certainly you can look at. I've never been one to hide any of that stuff.
Just so council knows, it was presented to me, an ordinance for a TIF, and I chose not to put it on the agenda tonight.
Thank you.
Until we have no idea what's going on. So that never made it to the agenda tonight, just so you know.
And in case anybody is going to leave after the discussion here, when we start to talk about the actual ordinance for that annexation, it is on second reading, but there's a public hearing set for May the 20th, so we would we couldn't do anything until after that anyway, so.
We're just going to keep moving until we get some
answers.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on the?
I just say this, there may not be answers to the capital improvement part of this until after the June deadline. So the first part is the annexation itself. We've got a deadline of June on that, right?
Yeah.
Because you got 120 days.
We got time.
And then we might not have the capital part figured out.
One quick question. One quick question,
Yeah,
Mr.
please.
Morse. The TIF that was done for Wadsworth Crossings, I know that was for commercial development.
Yeah.
What kind of TIF was that, and how long was that one
I think it
for?
was a 10-year,
10-year.
50%.
Okay.
Because they changed the law, it used to be 50%, they moved it to 75%.
Okay.
So that's a 10-year, it's done, it's off the
Okay,
books.
I just wanted to see how it compared.
So you
Thank
see there's quite a few questions.
Yeah.
Having not had any deep discussion on this, you got a lot of work to do. Thank you. All right.
Mr.
Yes.
President, can I just
Yeah.
chime in for a second? I just wanted to point out something that that Director Morris had pointed out as well. We need to still keep moving from a legal standpoint on the annexation itself, et cetera. And I realize the TIF's not on there, but I just wanted to reiterate that still has to keep moving along.
Thank you, but it's 120 days, and I don't think that's up until June. I don't know.
Correct.
First part of June?
Correct, yeah.
So we have time.
There's time. I'm just saying, we just need to make sure that keeps moving
We
along.
will, we're aware. Thank you so
Yep,
much.
You're welcome.
Anything else you'd like to comment?
No, nothing on this right now.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. President.
thank you. All right, if nothing else, we'll go into draft legislation. If you would look at your packet on our agenda, we need to do a little bit of cleanup. Would you like to explain that to council, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So the first 4 ordinances that are listed there
And
on,
this is on your regular agenda, not the committee of the whole tonight.
well, on the committee of the whole, the first 4 were the items that were drafted by Ms. Fix. And those 4 ordinances based on our last discussion, those essentially are going to divide up ordinance number 25-072 and ordinance number 25-073. So my recommendation, based on the discussion that we had last week, how everyone was asking to have those items divided up, we've now got them divided up, and these items will be on first reading. I would say, before we get to the reading of the legislation, right after committee and commission updates at the regular city council meeting, we should have a motion, and I would suggest for Mr. Rosberg, since both 7.2 and 7.3 are yours, a motion to remove those two from the city council agenda. Then we would just simply need a second on that, and then a majority vote, and those two items would be taken off. And then you could individually vote on and decide on those first four ordinances. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, that's probably the easiest and cleanest way to do that.
Okay, makes sense.
So what we're going to do, you'll read these first before we go
Right.
into the new.
Exactly.
You got
I
it?
read.
Okay.
You want me to start with?
You'll
the-
start with 25-072.
It's not even, she doesn't even have to read them, I'll just make a motion.
No, but we have to, we have to call them. Right?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
They have to be read?
She have to read the
She doesn't
title.
even have to read
No,
them.
no, she wouldn't even need to read
I'll
them.
make a motion,
So you'll just do that.
before we
Yeah.
start any legislation, I'll
Yep.
make a motion to remove those two.
Correct.
Very good. So that's clean. We'll move on to the first item on the committee of the whole. Number one.
Do I need, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Will I need to take a roll call on that motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Who would like to speak on item number one, please?
Kathy, I don't know what you.
So,
I can
Mr.,
read it if you want.
yeah, go ahead.
So this is exactly what Mr. Proudfoot indicated to you. Based upon the discussions from our last council meeting, Auditor Fix has separated out the $150,000, both the transfer, which is item number one, as well as the supplemental appropriation associated with that 150, which is item number two on your legislation, from that original global $550,000 transfer and supplement. So it basically separated that out based upon the discussions that were had at the last meeting, so that you can make a determination on new ordinance number one, as well as new ordinance item number two. First, the transfer and the supplemental, if you want to authorize it, and then, if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
I'll move on. 3 and 4 works the same way, but has to do with separating out for the southwest parking lot structure building, with the first, item number 3 being the transfer, item number 4 being the supplemental. So it gives you, council, the opportunity to vote independently on those items.
That's what we asked for.
Director Hiscock,
Yes.
do you need some of this passed now on an emergency?
Spend a call on all of them.
The Memorial Park items, I would ask your consideration to suspend and call on those. The items 3 and 4 can be read if you would like additional time.
Okay.
What has to happen is I'm working with the design team, and they're waiting on my direction. And I told them, I'm waiting, we've been having some thorough discussions, and I'm waiting on a decision, and I will inform them as soon as I have a decision. So-
Mr. Rosberg, will you suspend and call the first two items?
Yep, and I'll place the other two on second reading.
Okay. Numbers?
Okay, so item number 1 will be 25-078, 2 will be 079, 3 would be 25-080, and 4 will be 25-081.
Okay. Then item number 5. Who would like to address that? Your
Yes.
supplemental appropriation of
Can I ask some questions
$44,491.
about 3 and 4?
Pardon me?
May I ask some questions about 3 and 4?
Shortly.
Okay.
Short on time.
Mr. Hitchcock, I appreciate all of your efforts and communication with us and doing all this research, but this is such a significant amount of money compared to what we had originally planned for this. I'm really looking forward to putting this in next year's capital budget. As you said, I believe in the Ways Committee that the parking lot itself could go forward and be repaired, and we would not have to put this in, we could put this in a phase. I'm
We'll talk
using the
about
word
this,
phase.
we'll talk about it at committee.
Okay.
So this isn't really a question
voting for it.
here. This is a question for Public Ways, and that's where it should be discussed.
talk about
not
it.
here.
Still up for,
We'll talk about it in committee.
okay.
So moving on to item number 5.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. This is a request for a supplemental appropriation, item 5, plus a warrant, item 6. The Ohio Department of Taxation has requested this amount from us for a refund to a corporation within the city. And we don't budget for these. I've only seen one this large one other time in 12 years. So that's why we need the warrant, because there was no encumbrance of these funds. And I mean, tax information is confidential, but basically we are mandated to return the money to them.
Does council understand? It's an overpayment.
Yeah. I get it.
Let's see. Ms. Hines, will you take item 5 and 6?
Yes.
That'll
Suspend
be-
and call, or
Do we need
since
action?
Yes,
money?
please. It's due on May
Yeah.
10th.
Suspend and call, yeah.
Number 5 will be ordinance number 25-082, and 6 is 25-083.
Okay, item number 7.
That would be mine also. This is a request for a supplemental appropriation. This is a large deduction from the county. They withheld it from our tax apportionment due mainly to the municipal court election being in addition to the regular election. So we need these additional funds. Again, it was a deduction. It's already been deducted. I'm trying to replace the budget, basically.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Any questions from council? Let's see who's next. Mr. Parrish, will you take that one, please? Sure. Is there a time limit on that?
I mean, we're basically borrowing other funds until we get this appropriation. So as soon as reasonably you feel comfortable doing it.
Okay. You want to suspend and call, please?
Okay.
And that'll be 25-084.
And then item number 8.
I can speak to that, Mr. Williams. This was an item that was discussed in Safety Committee. We were able to review a draft, make some revisions to that draft, and now it's proposed. Mr. Copley, I'm looking to you for a little bit of guidance. I do not recall what we talked about in terms of readings, but I would offer that I think your consideration as soon as possible would be helpful, given the season and some of the visitors we had in terms of comments at the Public Safety Committee.
Yeah.
My only input would be is that I'd like to see it go at least one reading to get other input from citizens, okay? Because I agree, we need to get it into effect because summer's coming and everything, but I'd like to at least it go one reading.
Yeah.
I think
well,
that's-
at least,
that's
you know, because when school's out, that's when the problem really begins, or better weather.
Yeah.
You know, and I know you put a lot of effort into this ordinance. I really appreciate it. But is there any way it can go farther and start including some of the electric motorized bikes and different, basically dirt bikes with electric motor, and I see them all over the sidewalks, and ran into one in our Memorial Park. They're cutting through yards. I mean, they're just, can we go deeper than what the Ohio Revised Code has as far as what an ATV vehicle is?
We can certainly look at that. I think that would require certainly amendment to what we're proposing right now. I would
We
like
can
to speak
amend.
to Mr. Proudfoot too on those topical issues. Not
Yeah.
sure from a prosecutorial standpoint what we can and cannot do.
I can tell you how it's worded right now. We actually cite straight to Ohio Revised Code 45.0901, and we're using the definition of all-purpose vehicle right now. So we would have to make some subtle changes if we're going to add other, electric bikes or the little motorbikes have the electric in it. We'd have to make some alterations, but the way it's worded right now, it would not cover those. So
Wouldn't it make sense to go ahead and move this one here on forward and amend
Yes,
it?
yes, I believe so.
Okay.
So just, legally, I mean, a motorized vehicle of any kind is not allowed on a sidewalk, nor a bicycle, correct?
a bicycle on the
Yes.
sidewalk? Well, yeah, generally you don't have any kind of motorized vehicles on sidewalks. I haven't reviewed our ordinances here, but
Okay. Well, again, this is for safety, but,
Yeah.
you know, just while we're on the topic. So you're going to move that to second reading?
Move to second.
Okay.
That'll be ordinance number 25-085.
Okay. Then on our regular agenda, ordinance 25048, Councilmember Yurcheck, what are we going to do there?
Third.
Okay. And 25064, Councilmember Stugmeyer.
That one there, we had a recommendation of 3 readings. We'll move that one to third.
Third. Ordinance 25065.
We'll suspend and call that this evening.
Okay. Any questions from council on this? Okay. Ordinance number 25-072.
I'm going to remove that from the agenda
And the next one?
as well as the next one.
Okay. Ordinance 25074. That's yours, Councilmember Brosper.
We'll move that to third.
Yeah, let's move it to third. Ordinance 25077. There's a public meeting on that tonight, so we won't take any action. Or is that next? I'm sorry, I misread that. Thought I had my eye fixed. Move that to third. 25062. Councilmember Hanlon.
Call.
You call it? Good. Ordinance 25063, Councilmember Parrish. It's on third reading.
Call.
Ordinance 25-053, Councilmember Yurcheck.
Call.
And let's see, ordinance 25054.
Call.
Okay. Does council understand all the legislation there? Any questions? Okay.
The only thing I would like to do is move 25074, the pavilion, back to committee. I would like to take it off the agenda and move it back to committee at this time.
That would be up to Councilmember Rosper.
We don't have a design.
We don't have a concept drawing, we don't have a design, basically. I think it should be discussed in public ways and not put on our committee.
We can move that to additional reading and sort through it.
That's why I said, if we move it to third, then we can discuss it in public ways this week. Is that fair?
Good to me.
Okay, that brings us to the end. Any questions, comments? Of a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Well, the regular council meeting of the City of Wadsworth for Wednesday, May 7th, 2025, please come to order. Will you please rise and pledge allegiance to the flag and remain standing for the invocation? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty God, who has given us this good land to be our heritage, we acknowledge our dependence upon you for all things, and we thank you for all your blessings, including the right and privilege to govern ourselves in this free land. We pray that you would grant us all wisdom to make good decisions for the future of this community. Through Christ our Lord, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Copley.
Here?
Hanlon.
Here.
Hines.
Here.
Parrish.
Here.
Rosbert.
Here?
Stugmeyer.
Here.
Yurcheck.
Here.
And Williams.
Here. You've all had the opportunity to read the minutes for the regular city council meeting on April 15th, 2025. May I have a motion to approve them?
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the minutes from our council meeting of April 15th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes for the regular city council meeting of April 15th, 2025 are approved. The next item, the mayor has a proclamation tonight for our police. Please come to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor this evening to be able to present a proclamation on behalf of Peace Officers Memorial Day, as well as National Police Week. And here we have to receive the proclamation our own Chief Chafin. We're certainly grateful to him and to his department, and it's wonderful to have a special time to be able to recognize the efforts of you and your department. You all do a tremendous job. I always tell individuals how fortunate we are in our community to have our safety forces that we do. Wadsworthians feel safe. We feel privileged, really, to have the protection of you and your department. And we recognize that, especially as we honor Peace Officers Memorial Day, that sadly there are times when you and your department are put into harm's way, and we recognize that. And so without any further ado, I want to state that whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week of May 15th through the 21st, 2025 as National Police Week. And whereas over 600,000 men and women serve with valor and distinction as law enforcement officers across the nation, embodying the core values of discipline, integrity, and courage. And whereas our own City of Wadsworth Police Department works tirelessly to protect the rights and freedoms of all citizens, uphold the rule of law, and defend the innocent, at times risking their own safety. And whereas on Peace Officers Memorial Day, May 15th, we honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice or who have sustained disabilities while performing their duties. We pay tribute to all officers who embrace the responsibilities of their noble profession and willingly face danger to ensure our safety. And now, therefore, I, Mayor Robin L. Lawbaugh, deem it a pleasure to proclaim May 15th through the 21st, 2025, to be set aside and observed as National Police Week in the City of Wadsworth, calling upon all our citizens to recognize the dedication and service of the men and women of our Wadsworth Police Department. We are deeply grateful for their efforts and the support of their families, who strengthen and enrich the Wadsworth community. Signed and sealed the 7th day of May, 2025, Robin L. Lawbaugh, Mayor. Thank you. And we'd love to hear some words from you.
And just a heads up for the safety committee members, I have one note card, so I can't go too long.
We'll get out of here on time tonight.
I promise you'll still get out of here on time. As the mayor mentioned, Police Week is a very special week. It's designed to recognize those officers all across the country that made the ultimate sacrifice in serving their communities. And I would agree with the mayor that we really do have an exceptional group of officers, an exceptional group of men and women that day in and day out perform at a very, very high level in our community. And I could not be more honored or proud to receive this in their honor. It's also not lost on me today that while this celebration will begin next week, while I'm speaking to you today, I'm wearing a mourning band just like officers all across the state of Ohio. Deputy Larry Henderson was killed in the line of duty. He was a Hamilton County Sheriff's deputy. His end of watch was on May 2nd. If you're not familiar with the story, it's awful. He had served for 33 years, retired, was working as a special deputy. And while he was working traffic control for a graduation ceremony, another man who was the father of a son who was killed by Cincinnati police a few days earlier, was caught in a stolen car, exited the car with a firearm, extended magazine, and during a foot pursuit, pointed the gun at officers, and they were forced to shoot him. That person's father saw Deputy Henderson working traffic control and intentionally drove his car off the road and murdered Deputy Henderson because he was a representative of law enforcement. He didn't work for the same agency. He wasn't involved in that incident. He just was a law enforcement officer, and he took his life. I'd also like to share 5 numbers. You can write them down or just think about them as we go through them. The numbers are 25, 38, 1,800, 1,500, and 740. The first number is of 25. That's the number of officers that have died across this country already at this point this year. That number is actually 65% lower than where we were last year at this same time. But the second number, 38, it's 38 kids that don't have a mom or dad anymore because they went to work to serve their community and they made the ultimate sacrifice. And I think that 38 number is really powerful to me. And I think it's a good thing to keep in mind that the men and women that work here, many of them leave behind families when they come to work on shift, when they come to work midnight shift, they leave their families behind, and there's 38 kids now that don't have a mom and dad across our country. The last 3 numbers are actually all related, and I think they're also very important, and I think it's important to share them in a format like this. And I also want to say in advance that those numbers, they're not a trick, because I didn't know what those numbers were either until I watched the presentation last week. 1,800, it takes 1,800 hours to become a barber in the state of Ohio. 1,500, that's what it takes to get your cosmetology license in the state of Ohio. 740 is the amount of hours it takes to become a certified peace officer in the state of Ohio. And so while this week is memorializing those that have made the ultimate sacrifice, I think it's so important to support the men and women that are doing the job every day and are willing to make that sacrifice. And I think something that's important for me, the safety director, and something that we talk about often is training. Not only does it help professionalize the officers and give a higher expectations for what the citizens can expect, but that training can also make the difference in them becoming one of those 25 that we've already mentioned. So I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity to make some comments, and obviously I appreciate this proclamation on behalf of all the city. So thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
Very moving. Are there any visitors who would like to address council? Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments brief, 2-3 minutes. Seeing no one, is there any correspondence?
Yes, I did receive a signed warrant from the city auditor regarding the Ohio Treasurer of State in the amount of $44,941.91.
That brings us to committee and commissions. A regular city council committee of the whole, we met earlier this evening, quite a few discussions, one being on the TIF. We have a public hearing on Tuesday, May 20th at 6:30 p.m. in council chambers regarding the Vance PUD. The Public Service Committee, Councilmember Stugmeyer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The Public Service Committee will meet next Tuesday, May the 13th, 5:30 p.m. here in council chambers.
Thank you. Councilmember Copley, Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next meeting of Public Safety will be on Wednesday, May the 14th at 4:30 p.m. here in council chambers.
Very good. Public Waste Committee, Councilmember Rosberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are changing the Public Ways Committee meeting to Wednesday, the 14th of May at 6 o'clock here in council chambers.
Very good. Economic Development and Planning Committee, Councilmember Yurcheck.
Thank you, Mr. President. ED&P will next meet on Monday, the 12th of May at 5 p.m. in council chambers.
Very good. Airport Commission, Councilmember Stugmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Airport Commission has a meeting scheduled on May the 21st. That is Wednesday, May the 21st, 4 p.m. here in council chambers.
Okay. Stormwater Commission, Councilmember Copley.
Next meeting of Stormwater Commission will be July the 8th at 5 o'clock p.m. prior to this Public Service Committee here in council chambers.
Shade Tree Commission, Councilmember Hines.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Shade Tree Commission will meet Tuesday, May 27th, here in council chambers at 5 o'clock, the last Tuesday of the month.
Okay. Planning Commission does not have a meeting scheduled. Cemetery Board, Councilmember Yurcheck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Cemetery Board will next meet on Wednesday, May 21st at 5 p.m. in council chambers.
Okay. Cable TV Commission, Councilmember Hanlon.
The Cable TV Commission will meet on Thursday, June 5th at 4:30 in council chambers.
Senior Citizens Commission, Councilmember Parrish.
4 o'clock.
Yeah, 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senior Citizens Commission is going to be Monday, June 9th at 3:30 in the Suprema Center. And one added thing, the Coffee with the Cop is May 15th with Chief Chafin. It's most beloved and well-attended events at the Senior Center.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to the reading of the legislation. We have one item. Mr. Ross?
Yes, Mr. President, I move to remove ordinance 25072 and 25073 from tonight's agenda.
Second?
Yurcheck?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Parrish?
Yes.
Hanlon?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
And Rossbert?
Yes.
Oh, very good. Those two items have been removed from the agenda. Would you like to read the rest of the legislation, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll start with our first readings this evening. We have ordinance number 25-078 on first reading, sponsored by Councilmember Dan Rossbert and discussed at Committee of the Whole. An ordinance to authorize transfer of $150,000 for additional utility installations at the Memorial Park Phase 3 project for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025, and to declare an emergency.
Mr. President, I move to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance number 25078.
Second.
Hines?
Yes.
Parrish?
Yes.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
Yurcheck?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
Hanlon?
Yes.
Mr. President, I call to question on ordinance number 25078.
Hearing no objection to Councilmember Rossbert's proposal to call to question, will the clerk please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance number 25078?
Parrish?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Yurcheck?
Yes.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
And Hanlon?
Yes.
Ordinance number 25078 has been adopted.
Ordinance number 25-079 on first reading, sponsored by Councilmember Dan Rossbert and discussed at Committee of the Whole. An ordinance to make a supplemental appropriation of $150,000 in various funds for purposes other than personal services for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025, and to declare an emergency.
Mr. President, I move to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance number 25079.
Second.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
Yurcheck?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
Hanlon?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
And Parrish?
Yes.
Mr. President, I call the question on ordinance number 25079.
Hearing no objection to Councilmember Rossbert's proposal to call to question, will the clerk please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance number 25-079?
Hanlon?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Yurcheck?
Yes.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
Parrish?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Ordinance number 25-079 has been adopted.
Ordinance number 25-080 on first reading, sponsored by Councilmember Dan Rossbert and discussed at Committee of the Whole. An ordinance to authorize transfer of $400,000 for the installation of a structure for the Southwest Parking Lot project for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025, and to declare an emergency.
Mr. President, I move to place ordinance number 25080 on second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay.
Two opposed.
Opposed, Copley? And who else did oppose? Parrish.
So that goes to
5.
That'll move to second reading. Ordinance number 25-080 has been moved to second reading.
Ordinance number 25-081 on first reading, sponsored by Councilmember Dan Rossbert and discussed at Committee of the Whole. An ordinance to make a supplemental appropriation of $400,000 in various funds for purposes other than personal services for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025, and to declare an emergency.
Mr. President, I move to place ordinance number 25081 on second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No. Opposed?
Ordinance number 25-081 has been placed on second reading.
Ordinance number 25-082 on first reading, sponsored by Councilmember Jeannie Hines and discussed at Committee of the Whole. An ordinance to make a supplemental appropriation of $44,491.91 in the 110 General Fund for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend the three reading rule on ordinance number 25-082.
Second.
Hines?
Yes.
Parrish?
Yes.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
Yurcheck?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
And Hanlon.
Yes.
Mr. President, I call the question on ordinance number 25-082.
Hearing no objection to Councilmember Hines' proposal to call to question, will the clerk please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance number 25-082?
Yurcheck?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Parrish?
Yes.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
Hanlon?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Ordinance number 25-082 has been adopted.
Ordinance number 25-083 on first reading, sponsored by Councilmember Jeannie Hines and discussed at Committee of the Whole. An ordinance to authorize the drawing of a warrant in an amount not to exceed $44,941.91 for the payment of the amount due upon a contract with the Ohio Treasurer of State and to declare an emergency.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend the three reading rule on ordinance number 25-083.
Second.
Yurcheck?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
Hanlon?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Parrish?
Yes.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. President, I call the question on ordinance number 25-083.
Hearing no objection to Councilmember Hines' proposal to call to question, will the clerk please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance number 25-083?
Parrish?
Yes.
Yurcheck?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
Hanlon?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
And Hines.
Yes.
Ordinance number 25-083 has been adopted.
Ordinance number 25-084 on first reading, sponsored by Councilmember David Parrish and discussed at Committee of the Whole. An ordinance to make a supplemental appropriation of $39,778.23 in the 110 General Fund for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I move to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance number 25-084.
Second.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Yurcheck?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
Hanlon?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Parrish?
Yes. Mr. President, I call to question on ordinance number 25-084.
Hearing no objection to Councilmember Parrish's proposal to call to question, will the clerk please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance number 25-084?
Hines?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Yurcheck?
Yes.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
Hanlon?
Yes.
Parrish?
Yes.
Ordinance number 25-084 has been adopted.
Ordinance number 25-085 on first reading, sponsored by Councilmember Ralph Copley and discussed at Public Safety. An ordinance to enact Section 75.11 of the Municipal Code of Ordinances of the City of Wadsworth, which is to be added and amends the Municipal Code of Ordinances, establishing operation of all-purpose vehicles on private property and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to move ordinance number 25-085 to second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Ordinance number 25-085 has been moved to second reading.
And our second readings this evening, ordinance number 25-048 on second reading, sponsored by Councilmember John Yurcheck and discussed at Economic Development and Planning. An ordinance to accept the application of annexation of 61.4450 acres of land known as being part of Wadsworth Township to the City of Wadsworth and to declare an emergency.
Mr. President, I move that we place ordinance number 25-048 on third reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Opposed?
How many was that?
Copley and who else?
Rossbert.
Okay, that's
Still
fine.
passed.
Yep.
Ordinance number 25-048 has been placed on third reading.
Ordinance number 25-064 on second reading, sponsored by Councilmember Tom Stugmeyer and discussed at Public Service. An ordinance finding the existence of an emergency in the Department of Public Service, authorizing the interim director of Public Service to enter into contracts to purchase 6 333 kVAR voltage regulators with base stands for the Akron Road Voltage Regulator Upgrade Project without formal bidding, and and advertising and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I make a motion to move ordinance number 25-064 to a third reading.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Ordinance number 25-064 has been moved to third reading.
Ordinance number 25-065 on second reading, sponsored by Councilmember Tom Stugmeyer, discussed at public service. An ordinance authorizing the interim director of public service to negotiate and enter into an agreement for professional engineering services for design of the WWTP digester lid replacement project and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I make a motion to suspend the three reading rule on ordinance number 25-065.
Second.
Parrish?
Yes.
Yurcheck?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
Hanlon?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Stugmeyer.
Yes. Mr. President, I call the question on ordinance number 25-065.
Hearing no objection to Councilmember Stugmeyer's proposal to call to question, will the clerk please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance number 25-064?
Yurcheck?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Excuse me, let me back up. It's 065?
65, yes.
Yes, that'll be ordinance number 065. Okay, continue.
Thank you. I'll do a recall. Yurcheck?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
Hanlon?
Yes.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
Parrish?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Ordinance number 25-065 has been adopted.
Ordinance number 25-074 on second reading, sponsored by Councilmember Dan Rossbert and discussed at Public Ways. An ordinance authorizing the interim director of public service to purchase a pavilion structure and all installation and necessary work associated with said structure through participation in an Ohio state contract or cooperative purchase agreement and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I move to place ordinance number 25-074 on third reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
How many was that?
Copley. Who else opposed, please? Parrish. Still did pass.
Ordinance number 25-074 has been placed on third reading.
Ordinance number 25-077 on second reading. There will be a public hearing on Tuesday, May 20th, 2025 at 6:30 here in council chambers. It is sponsored by Councilmember John Yurcheck and discussed at Economic Development and Planning and is on second reading. An ordinance to rezone city lot number 9850 to Vance Farms Planned Unit Development and to establish Vance Farms Planned Unit Development zoning for 3 parcels in Wadsworth Township upon annexation into the City of Wadsworth, which are currently identified as PPNS 038-17B-12-009, 038-17B-12-011, and 038-17B-12-016, and to adopt Vance Farms PUD district regulations that are consistent with the pre-annexation agreement previously adopted by City Council and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I move that we place ordinance number 25-077 on third reading.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Ordinance number 25-077 has been placed on third reading.
And our third readings, ordinance number 25-062 on third reading, sponsored by Councilmember Susan Hanlon and discussed at Committee of the Whole. An ordinance to authorize reductions in the appropriations in the general fund for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025, and to declare an emergency.
Mr. President, I call the question on ordinance number 25-062.
Hearing no objection to Councilmember Hanlon's proposal to call to question, will the clerk please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance number 25-062?
Rossbert?
Yes.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Hanlon?
Yes.
Parrish?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
And Yurcheck?
Yes.
Ordinance number 25-062 has been adopted.
Ordinance number 25-063 on third reading, sponsored by Councilmember David Parrish and discussed at Committee of the Whole. An ordinance to make a supplemental appropriation of $30,000 in the 110 General Fund for purposes other than personal services for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025.
Mr. President, I call the question ordinance number 25-063.
Hearing no objection to Councilmember Parrish's proposal to call to question, will the clerk please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance number 25-063?
Hines.
Yes.
Yuracek.
Yes.
Rossbert.
Yes.
Copley.
Yes.
Stugmeyer.
Yes.
Hanlon.
Yes.
And Parrish.
Yes.
Ordinance number 25-063 has been adopted.
Our fourth readings this evening, ordinance number 25-053 on fourth reading, sponsored by Councilmember John Yuracek and discussed at Economic Development and Planning. An ordinance to amend sections 154.030 and 154.031 and to adopt sections 154.032 through 154.044 of the codified ordinances of the City of Wadsworth to make changes to the planned unit development regulations and to declare an emergency.
Mr. President, I move to call the question on ordinance number 25-053.
Hearing no objection to Councilmember Yurchek's proposal, I'll call the question. Will the clerk please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance number 25-053?
Hanlon?
Yes.
Parrish?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Yuracek?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
And Copley.
Yes.
Ordinance number 25-053 has been adopted.
And our last one this evening is ordinance number 25-054 on fourth reading, sponsored by Councilmember John Yuracek and discussed at Economic Development and Planning. An ordinance to amend section 154.580 of the codified ordinances of the City of Wadsworth to update said section to match with public hearing requirements in the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I move to call the question on ordinance number 25-054.
Hearing no objection to Councilmember Yurchek's proposal to call to question, will the clerk please take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance number 25-054?
Hines?
Yes.
Hanlon?
Yes.
Stugmeyer?
Yes.
Rossbert?
Yes.
Copley?
Yes.
Parrish?
Yes.
And Yuracek?
Yes.
Ordinance number 25-054 has been adopted. Is there any other business? Administrators? Council?
Just want to mention this Saturday, after a hiatus since 2019, the Craft and Herb Festival will be moving back downtown. With the downtown businesses included, there'll be over 75 vendors downtown. The streets will be open. They'll all be down on the sidewalks the way it was runway in the past. So that will be this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
it looks like the sun will finally be out.
Yeah, we may have some good weather. Any other comments? Just one thing, and I want to let you know. I did get information from our county administrator. I did not keep it from anybody until we had some information that I could give you. I will share that with everyone on council. And also about the meeting yesterday, we have information that was presented there, and you'll all get an email with that information. So that's all I had. All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.